afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. Tony Grossi, longtime Browns beat reporter, on the reports that Deion Sanders at a business convention publicly said last week that he and Shedeur are hoping they go to the Giants.
They want Shedeur to go to the Giants, right?
Right. This was at a business conference that he was a keynote speaker in Chicago last week, and he spoke, and somebody asked him in a Q&A, where do you think Shedeur's going to go? And his answer was, we're hoping New York. So it's the first time publicly he stated what everyone's expected.
And there's no record of this, though.
No, there was no video. There was not a story.
But people were there and heard him say it.
And one of the people who were there tweeted it out. And today, Deion issued a tweet. You know, you could loosely say that he's confirming that, yeah, I want him to go to New York, but I can't, whatever he goes is fine.
You still think they'd be okay coming to Cleveland?
Oh, yeah, I think they would be.
And again, Deion did deny that they said it wasn't true. Again, we'll see. Chris Sims, former NFL quarterback, on what he thinks the Browns should do at 2 if the Titans take Cam Ward with the top pick.
Abdul Carter is definitely worth the second pick of the draft. And you want to take your team up another level, special, whatever. Myles Garrett coupled with Abdul Carter would be one of the best pass rushing duos in football from the get-go. This is Abdul Carter's. It's Micah Parsons-ish. It's Von Miller-ish. It's about as explosive as you're going to see a 250-pound man move. The quick step, just the ability to bend around the edge, all that, Mike. Like, it's elite. It's elite stuff. It really is. He's an elite mover. He's not some stiff, just big, strong guy. He can really weave through traffic. He's fast as hell. He's tough as hell. I think Cleveland will go Abdul Carter there.
Would give him great bookends with that pass rush. All right, so Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski were not at Cam Ward's pro day. They skipped Miami's pro day yesterday. They sent Glenn Cook and the national scout, Tony Grossi, ESPN Cleveland's longtime Browns beat reporter, on what he thought of that.
It's either the height of arrogance or the height of laziness or both. I mean, there is just no reason not to be there. You can't say, well, they're going to take Ward. It didn't stop the New York Giants from being there with their GM, their offensive coordinator, and their main scouts. I don't understand it, Riz. I want to give the Browns the benefit of the doubt that things are going to be different. But this is what Andrew Berry has done for 5 previous drafts. He doesn't go to pro days. And how great is his record with 1 Pro Bowl selection and 37 players drafted? So to me, it told me that nothing's changed in the way they're going about this critical draft. Nothing has changed.
Well, then nothing is going to change on the field either.
It's the definition of insanity.
All right, so Tony Grossi on the Browns brain trust, at least Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry skipping Cam Ward's pro day. All right, let's turn our attention to the Cavaliers, still out west. They'll be in Portland to play the Trailblazers tonight. Donovan Mitchell will not play. He is out for the game. Former NBA player Patrick Beverley with his thoughts on if the Cavs can win an NBA championship.
Can the Cleveland Cavaliers do it?
Yeah.
I disagree.
Why?
No one's afraid of him. And I love this player to death. If Darius Garland can step up and be Darius Garland every single game in the playoffs, they're going to win. The minute he chooses not to take defense serious, they're going to lose. The minute Donovan Mitchell doesn't take defense serious and depends on those big to challenge everything at the rim and put them in foul trouble, they're going to lose. That's my only issue with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Defense wins championships. Offense sells tickets.
Cavs defense has been among the best in the league, so it'll be interesting to see. Guardians getting ready to open up regular season play Thursday in Kansas City against the Royals. Wrapping up the exhibition season with a couple against the Diamondbacks. Last night, 3rd inning, Stephen Kwan finds the gap, and it's going to go all the way to the wall. Kwan with an RBI triple to give the Guardians a 1-0 lead in the 3rd inning. In the 5th inning, still 1-0, and a little excuse me shot by Jose Ramirez, and that will score Rocchio to make it 2-0 Guardians. Gabriel Arias playing second base and doing an Andres Jimenez impersonation as Arias, nice play defensively at second base. Gavin Williams was on the mound, went 5 innings, and was strong again. Scattered 5 hits and struck out 5. The Guardians win it by a score of 4-0. So Tanner Bybee will get the start Thursday in that season opener against Kansas City after signing his long-term extension earlier. Bybee talked about getting his first ever opening day start for the Guardians.
I mean, yeah, it means a lot. I mean, I think I told you earlier, like, I never really thought about that. I feel like you always think about just kind of like, as a kid, you're like, I want to be in the major leagues. Never think that, like, at least I didn't want to be like, oh, I want to start on opening day. It's just like, I want to be there and experience the whole thing. But I was kind of settled a little bit. I mean, it's really cool to kind of get us off on the right foot and kind of hopefully establish an identity really early about what we're about.
So it will be Bybee against the Royals Thursday when the Guardians open up the regular season. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. We're talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
We're out here busting common lottery myths by talking to real players just like you and you. If an Ohio Lottery scratch-off game has 1 in 4 odds, that means if I were to buy 4 tickets in a row, I'm guaranteed to be a winner. True or false?
I'm going to say true.
Oh, that's false.
You're right, it's false. The jackpot for the Mega Millions is at its highest it's ever been before. I now have worse odds. True or false?
True. False.
False? That is exactly right. You can learn more by going to ohiolottery.com/knowtheodds.
We begin today talking Browns. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, Frank from Cleveland. One thing today. You think we could fluff the Giants like we're taking Sanders at 2 and trade back a spot, get some draft capital, and still grab Abdul Carter? That's the best dude in the draft. I don't care what anybody says. That kid's a beast. God bless you and the family, David. I love you guys, and you be good. Be safe.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Mary Kay, I don't know that it's a bluff. I think they are interested in Sanders, but if they give them enough draft capital to move up a spot, they may say yes to that.
They might. The whole key for the Browns is to determine which quarterbacks they really like in this draft and who they would feel comfortable with. If they have another quarterback that they have ranked as highly as they do Shedeur, or even higher than they do Shedeur, then they can afford to trade that pick. So that's what's going to be interesting over the next few weeks. I keep coming back to Browns taking Shedeur, but I mean, you just never know. It does seem like there is, for some reason, you keep seeing his name connected to the Giants. So sometimes where there is smoke, there is fire. So we're going to have to see how this plays out.
I know you've talked about this on your Orange and Brown Talk podcast with Ashley Bastock, Dan Lobby. The quarterback market kind of reset it. Free agency, draft, what's it look like now for the Browns?
Well, let's start with the veteran quarterback market right now. Everyone's waiting to see what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. If he signs with the Steelers or if he signs with the Giants, it impacts the Browns because then Russell Wilson will make up his mind and decide what he wants to do. Does he go back to the Steelers? Does he go to the Giants, or does he sign with the Cleveland Browns? I don't think they have a huge contract for him. I think he's going to have to find out if he wants to come here for that bridge quarterback money. Maybe this, I don't know what the money would be. They usually want to pay their bridges about $6 million, but with Russ, I think you'd have to go above and beyond that, maybe add some incentives to it. So they're waiting for that. And then as I reported last week, that Carson Wentz and the Browns have mutual interest in the event that the Browns don't sign Russell Wilson. And I also think that Joe Flacco is someone that is still kind of on the radar as well, and maybe others. So that's kind of where the veteran market is right now. Everything's in a little bit of a holding pattern for a number of reasons, including the fact that Aaron hasn't made up his mind yet. The Browns are kind of on a crisscrossing the nation tour this week of pro days. And even though they were not at at Cam Ward's pro day yesterday in terms of Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. They are fanned out all over the place this week, and they are going to these pro days. So we'll just have to see how that one goes. And then as far as the rookie quarterback market is concerned, Cam Ward just had an excellent pro day yesterday. I think the Titans are going to take him #1 overall. If the Browns absolutely love him, and I wrote this earlier today, if they absolutely love him, then they should pick up the phone, call the Titans, and see if they can't make some kind of a deal to move up from 2 to 1. But they probably won't be the only team doing that. I'm sure that the Titans will field multiple phone calls for Cam Ward after how he's skyrocketed up some draft boards over the past few months. And then Shador, don't know exactly how that all stands, but he will have his pro day on April 4th, and the Browns will be there, and they will be putting the finishing touches on their evaluation of him. Then you've got Tyler Shuck. I believe they're at his pro day today. He's someone that they are having in. I reported recently that they're having him in for a top 30 visit, so that's interesting and intriguing. So much that can still happen in this rookie quarterback market between now and the draft.
So Aaron Rodgers visited with the Steelers, and I know you wrote an article about kind of how that would affect the Browns and potentially Russell Wilson. Do you think, I got to believe, if Russell Wilson is out there, he's going to want to be a starting quarterback or at least have a shot to be a starting quarterback?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's going to be part of the negotiation. But when you look at some of the other teams, I mean, the same thing could happen with the New York Giants. If he goes ahead and signs with the Giants and they take a quarterback at #3 overall, or they trade up to #1 to get a quarterback, then he's not necessarily going to be the starter there either. And same thing with Pittsburgh. They did not retain him as their starting quarterback for this year. So you'd have to think that they are also in the hunt for a rookie or another veteran or something like that. So they're hanging their hat right now on Aaron Rodgers, and we're trying to upgrade over Russell. So that might not necessarily be the best opportunity for him either. So it's all a matter of when and who and the money and the opportunity. But it's not like anyone right now is clamoring for him as their surefire starting quarterback.
So I know you've had this in one of your Hey Mary case. Why don't the Browns just sign Joe Flacco?
Well, for a number of reasons. I think they do want to go younger at the position. Why didn't they sign him last year? In part because Jameis Winston became available and he was younger. They went from a 40-year-old down to a 31-year-old. And I think the same thing is true with Carson Wentz. Joe Flacco will be turning 41, not until I don't think December, but he will be turning 41 this year. And then you've got Carson Wentz, who is 32. So I think age is a factor here. And I don't think anything else is a factor. I've asked around a little bit, and it doesn't seem like they're worried about his presence being too overwhelming for a rookie quarterback. So I don't think that's it. I think they're just kind of looking at the age factor more than anything. It's really an outlier to be playing over 40, as we all know. So that's what's going on there. And then I just think that they have other thoughts, other ideas in mind. If it's not Carson Wentz, if it's not Joe Flacco, maybe there's somebody else that we haven't heard about yet. So just something to keep an eye on.
So again, same type of thing. Why do you think Browns fans should feel confident that the team will get the right quarterback?
Well, I do think that we don't really have any data on this current regime and how they will draft a quarterback high. All we know from them so far is that they acquired Deshaun Watson in a trade, and they really wanted him, and they really liked him. That's what Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski really wanted back then. That wasn't Jimmy's idea. That was Andrew's idea and Kevin's idea, and then Jimmy came through with the fully guaranteed contract at the end. So that's all we know about that. And then they drafted Dorian Thompson-Robinson in the 5th round. And we have not seen them go through this process before, where they have to go out and find the best quarterback in a rookie class yet. So it's going to be very interesting. Obviously, this is not 2024, where there were a cornucopia of good rookie quarterbacks. This is one where there are some intriguing prospects, some diamonds in the rough, some prospects, some quarterbacks that the Browns are excited about, but no one really knows for sure how they're going to project to the NFL and if they are going to be as good as any of those quarterbacks that came out last year, the 6 of them in the first round. It really seems like Cam Ward is going to be amazing in the NFL. It seems like Shedeur has a chance to be really good. And then there are others that might surprise everyone. Tyler Shuck is getting a lot of run. Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Kyle McCord. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And that's why I have said so many times that I think they should draft 2 quarterbacks in this draft. I would 100% do it. You have 10 picks. Why not spend 2 of them on a quarterback? Get someone in your developmental pipeline. Now, as far as a pipeline guy, Tyler Shuck might not fit that profile because he's already 25. So you can't keep him in a pipeline too long. But if you really like him a lot, maybe he's your guy. I don't know if it has risen to that level or not, but they're certainly intrigued by him. And as I wrote recently, they're bringing him in for a top 30 visit.
So let's talk a little bit about names that we've heard associated with the Browns in trade. 49ers wide receiver Brandon Ayuk. We know they tried to trade for him last year. He signed the deal. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think are those talks happening?
I don't really think so. I'll be able to find out more about that as we get to the owners' meetings this coming week and see if there's anything there more than smoke. But when I look it up, let's just say on the internet, I'm not super confident with the origination of those reports. I think one of them is from someone that has tried to dupe people in the past a little bit here and there about some things. And I just don't feel real confident in those reports. There are certain reports out there right now that I have pretty much ignored. It's that one, and then the one about where Dion supposedly said in New York at a supply chain conference that Shedeur prefers New York or something like that. So these are reports that if you dig to the bottom of them, you don't find a whole lot of substance. And so as far as Brandon Ayuk is concerned right now, until I can pin it down that they are interested in him, then I'm not touching that one.
Another one that's a name that's out there that is connected with them is a young tight end, Michael Mayer from the Raiders. Now, they did draft Brock Bowers very high in the draft last year. Could you see that being a possibility?
Yes, I could see something like that being a possibility. I haven't heard that myself yet. I haven't gotten that confirmed yet or really checked into that per se myself yet. But I could see a tight end being a position that they would trade for, even receiver. They've done that in the past with receivers, as we know. And I do think that they could use another tight end, although it's a good tight end draft. And whatever they can do to get rookie contracts is what they're going to need to do.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the side of the break, we'll talk a little bit more about the draft. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, Daniel Jeremiah, NFL.com, with his mock draft and where he thinks the Browns are headed in the first round.
You have Abdul Carter going. Him and Myles Garrett being teamed up would be absolutely absurd in Cleveland. How sure are you of that, or are you just trying to sit in Andrew Berry's shoes? And what do you think is going to be the next shake, maybe, from the information that you've received in your mock draft?
Yeah, I wouldn't say sure. I mean, the thing that feels sure right now in this thing is that Cam Ward feels very, very likely to go number one, and then I think all bets are off. I would say this about the Browns. They're going to take a quarterback. I feel confident about this. They're going to take a quarterback with one of their first 2 picks. So is that a situation where they take Shedeur Sanders right there at 2? If they were to take Abdul Carter at 2, I think 100% I would keep an eye on the Browns as a team that could be trading back into 1 to maybe get into the Jackson Dart sweepstakes.
And Mary Kay, that again, that makes sense that you got to address the quarterback early in this draft.
Yes, they definitely have to address the quarterback early in this draft, and they will draft a rookie quarterback, and they have identified some quarterbacks that they will view as their quarterback of the future. I don't know if you can wait until the second round. I don't know if you could take that risk. Are you going to put all your eggs in the Jackson Dart basket and then somebody's going to take him at number 15? And then what are you going to do? They need a quarterback. They can't mess around. I don't think that they can go too far back if they're not taking their guy at number 2 and if they really have their heart set on one. I just don't think you can mess around with that unless you've got 5 quarterbacks that you have ranked all equally and you'd be happy with any one of them. And I just don't see that as a viable option. So I wouldn't go back very far if you actually want to get Jackson Dart. I've heard people say he could go number 3 overall to the Giants. So that would be risky business right there. I kind of think that they just have to take their quarterback at number 2 and move on.
So we touched on this a little bit. Some people made a big deal that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski weren't at the pro day for Cam Ward yesterday. What are your thoughts about that? And I know we kind of alluded to it. They're all over the place this week with how many pro days there are.
Yeah, I thought it was somewhat interesting that they did not go to Cam's pro day. I don't know if they're trying to make some kind of statement there or if they just didn't feel like they needed to be there. But there was a report today, actually, Zach Jackson of The Athletic had reported that the Browns are going to be meeting privately with Cam Ward later in Miami. Now, the Browns are headed down to West Palm Beach for the owners' meetings beginning on Sunday through Tuesday. So I'm sure they're marrying that up with this trip and will spend a little bit more time with Cam Ward. So it doesn't mean they're out on Cam Ward by any stretch of the imagination. That's why I just wrote a whole story saying that if they really love him and want him, then they might have to pick up the phone and make an offer to the Titans. And who knows? I mean, I'm sure the Titans are going to take him at number 1 and they absolutely love him. But if some teams make them an offer that they can't refuse and they like Shedeur or somebody else better, then maybe they will think about trading that pick. So I think the Browns just have to keep all of their options open right now.
Along those lines, I know this is from one of your Hey Mary Kay. Should the Browns trade up to 1 to get Cam Ward and select a running back at 33? The other thing is, what do you think it would take for the Browns to move up 1 spot to get Cam Ward?
That is a great question. It depends on what the competition is. If there are 3 teams vying for that number 1 pick, then the price is going to go up. If I were the Titans, I would be asking for the moon. I'd probably be asking for another first-round pick. I know that sounds crazy, but I would. I would be asking for your next year's first-round pick to move up to that number 1 spot because you are potentially giving up a franchise quarterback, and those are always worth another first-round pick. So if I were the Titans, I would be aiming for the moon there. I wouldn't give it up for much less than that. And again, I could be overshooting that by a mile, but I don't know. That's just how I feel.
So you mentioned Browns hosted Tyler Shuck in a top 30 visit. Where do you think they view him as a potential fit? Is it at 2? Is it at 33? Is it a little bit later in the draft?
I'm not really exactly sure what they would do with him, where they would draft him, or what the thinking is, but maybe there's a world in which they are intrigued enough by him to think that if he does end up still being there in a later round, such as the 3rd round or something like that, that maybe they would come back and take a second quarterback like that. I don't know if that's their thinking. I don't know if they would consider him in the back end of the 1st round, which I proposed that absolutely crazy notion that sent the internet a little buzz about taking Shedeur at number 2 and then trading back into the 1st round and taking Tyler Shuck. Everybody thought I was crazy for that, but I don't care. I think that quarterbacks are assets, quarterbacks are developmental projects, and the Browns are in a situation where they have to do whatever they can to find and develop them.
So when you look at this in its free agency, the Browns have been real heavy with what they have signed in free agency on the defensive side of the ball. Linebacker Jerome Baker, defensive end Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, defensive tackle Malik Collins, cornerback Tony Brown, linebacker Devin Bush. 2 things kind of jump out to me, and I'm curious your thoughts. You signed 2 linebackers, so the concern about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is very real about him playing. And do you think it means offense-heavy draft for Andrew Berry and the Browns?
I don't necessarily think that it means that. We know they're going to get a quarterback. I think they probably are going to draft a running back and probably also a receiver. But with 10 picks, you certainly have the opportunity to add some defensive players as well. So it could go 6 offense, 4 defense. It could go 5 and 5. It could go any way. And I don't think they're going to look at it like balancing it out or trying to do this or that. I think that they will stay true to their board and they will pick the best players that they can find at whatever position when their time comes up.
Relative to 2 linebackers, so do you think that means they're telling us? I think they've said they're not sure what to expect from Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah.
Yeah, that's what I've been reporting that for a long, long time. I've been saying that for a long, long time, that they really don't know what the future holds for Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. At this point, he's not been cleared for football activity. The Browns' offseason program will begin next month, and I don't think he will be ready to be anywhere near a part of that at all. We'll know more about that perhaps when we talk to Andrew Berry in a small group setting at the NFL owners meetings next month. Now, whereas they have the coaches at a breakfast and at a big, huge table where anybody can come to that, when we talk to Andrew Berry, it's really just the Browns reporters that are there covering the meeting. So it's probably going to be about 5 of us, maybe 6. And so when you get him in a smaller group setting like that, it's easier to delve into some of these topics. And then we will also talk to the Haslam. So we'll know more about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah by the end of next week, beginning of next week. And I just don't think that he's someone that they're counting on necessarily for this season, especially not the beginning of the season.
So considering how much the defense regressed last season, this is from a Hey Mary Kay, with mostly the same players and coaches, what do you think? Was the offense kind of what set the defense back a little bit?
It certainly did not help. It didn't help to never be playing from ahead. It didn't help to not be able to stay on the field and convert 3rd downs. None of those things helped the defense. And the defense didn't do its part either in terms of getting the takeaways and setting the offense up with great field position and those kinds of things. But the offense certainly had a deleterious effect on that defense. So I just think that this year, if you can run the ball, if you can possess the ball, if you can maintain that time of possession edge, that it's going to help your defense, take some of that pressure off, and it will just help the whole entire team to have a much more efficient and explosive offense.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
We're out here busting common lottery myths by talking to real players just like you and you. If an Ohio lottery scratch-off game has 1 in 4 odds, that means if I were to buy 4 tickets in a row, I'm guaranteed to be a winner. True or false?
I'm going to say true. Oh, that's false.
You're right, it's false. The jackpot for the Mega Millions is at its highest it's ever been before. I now have worse odds. True or false?
True. False.
False? That is exactly right. You can learn more by going to ohiolottery.com/knowtheodds.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
What's up, Dave? It's Taylor. Hey, what do you think about drafting Travis Hunter 2nd overall and then trading back into the 1st round to take his brother Shedeur Sanders? Do you think that'll provide some instant offense and chemistry for the Browns? Let me know your thoughts. Thanks, man.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, I love the idea, but it's even more dangerous than trying to trade back into the first half because you hear all the talk. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is making it past the Giants at 3, and I certainly don't think he's making it past the Jets and the Raiders later in the draft, later in the first round. Like, he ain't making it out of the top 10.
No, I don't think so, unless there's something going on there that we just don't know about. And we are hearing rumblings. We have heard about stock falling and things like that. Of course, Dion has had plenty to say about that. He thinks at least one team is kind of putting the kibosh on his son and spreading lies and rumors about him. Originally, he did not believe that Shedeur would fall out of the top 3, and I still think it's probably going to go like that, but you never know how these things are going to go. Sometimes you have a surprise on draft day where a player does tumble a little bit, but I certainly wouldn't take my chances of trying to trade back into the first round if he's your quarterback. There's no way that they could afford to do that.
So I know you've done this on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast with Ashley and Dan. When you assess the Browns roster needs ahead of the draft, what do you see?
I see a lot that they really could use. In addition to quarterback, I believe that they do need another really good tight end. I do like Elijah Arroyo. I watched him a fair amount at the Senior Bowl. If he's someone that you could get in maybe even the 3rd round, I would go ahead and do that. I thought, to me, he looked like he had first-round potential when I watched him at the Senior Bowl. I haven't seen him projected to go that high, but I thought he had that kind of talent and ability when I watched him. So we'll have to see where he ends up. And then I'm going to go out and get a good young receiver to pair with Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman, and I'd go fairly high with that. There are some good ones in this draft. And then running back is definitely something that they're going to need to do, I believe. And it's a good deep running back draft. And I think you need a couple, actually. And I've said this before, I would find maybe a smaller, fast, shifty guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield and do some of the same types of things that Jerome Ford does for you. And then sort of a bruiser running back as well. So there are some really, really good ones in this draft. Ohio State's pro day is, I believe, tomorrow, and we'll be able to see some there. So those are some of the positions of need in my mind. And then I'm going edge rusher again at some point. If you can get one in 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, I definitely think that they need to get someone to pair with Miles and to add to that pile with Alex Wright and Isaiah McGuire.
So this is the most draft capital that's been used on wide receivers since 2020. This is from Warren Sharp, who put this together. So the Giants have used the most. The Bengals have used the 2nd most. Jets, Broncos, Chargers, and Ravens, who, like the Browns, are always looking for wide receivers, 6th most. Browns are the 6th least. So the Browns have used the 27th most capital ahead of the Bills. The Rams, who have pretty good wide receivers. Falcons, decent wide receivers. Saints and Buccaneers. So again, Andrew Berry hasn't used above a 3rd round pick on a wide receiver. 1 3rd-round pick was Anthony Schwartz. 1 was Cedric Tillman. So we know 1 didn't work out. 1 is that they kind of like what they see. Is this the time to kind of break the mold and maybe go a little earlier?
Well, I probably would, but we need to remember here that the Browns have traded for receivers instead of drafting them so far in the Andrew Berry regime. And once again, they didn't have 1st-round picks, and sometimes they didn't have 2nd-round picks. And so that was their way of stocking the wide receiver room. They ended up with Jerry Jeudy. They ended up with Amari Cooper. They ended up with Elijah Moore. So they've done a nice job in acquiring receivers through trades, and they might still do that. They could do that on draft day. Sometimes it's easier, or at least certain teams feel that for their purposes, it's better for them to take a proven receiver than to try to draft one. Maybe it says something about how they feel about their ability to draft receivers, although I don't think that's the case because, once again, they just haven't necessarily had those high picks to be able to do it. I'm sure Travis Hunter is somebody that they would strongly consider if they felt they could go quarterback in a later round. But once again, I don't really see that happening necessarily. So I would probably be looking at a receiver fairly high in this draft. I actually think that with running backs, you can afford to wait until the 3rd round, 4th round, sometimes even the 5th round to get yourself a really nice running back.
Do you think that's a philosophical thing? You kind of mentioned the trades, and they've drafted cornerbacks reasonably high. They've drafted linemen reasonably high. Is that kind of the the thought you build up front and then out?
You know, it's a good question that we probably do need to ask Andrew Berry to sort of drill down into that a little bit more about why they haven't necessarily looked at wide receiver side. Again, once again, they haven't had a lot of high picks over the last couple of years, but do they prefer to trade for them for a certain reason? Do the statistics tell you that once you get past the first round, it's really, really hard to hit on a wide receiver? I'm sure they have the analytics to back that up in some way. So something definitely to look into.
So I'm sure you get as many of these questions as we do. Why haven't the Browns re-signed Nick Chubb? This is from one of your Hey Mary Kays.
I get that question all the time, absolutely all the time. And they're just in a little bit of a holding pattern right now. It was an opportunity for him to go out and see what he can get on the open market. And if he was going to find an opportunity that he really liked, they were going to let him go seek that out and do that. And then if it didn't work out for him, where he didn't find something right away that he loved, then the two of those sides will get back together and revisit it. And the door is open for Nick to come back. And I think that, you know, there is a decent chance that they will re-sign him if they can carve out a little bit of a role for him, because they know how much goodwill that would bring for the fans. And, you know, there's something to be said for that, to do something that your fans really want you to do, to get excited about that. But the other thing is, the other way to look at it is, they don't really want Nick Chubb to be sitting around without a role and nothing to do and being inactive a bunch. So because he doesn't necessarily play that third down back role, you don't want to have Nick Chubb on your roster and not have him being active. So they have to make sure that they have a place for him on game day, not just on the regular roster. You need to have him on the game day roster in order for this to make sense.
All right, before I let you go, we get these questions as well all the time. Are the Browns more likely to trade up, trade back, or stay at 2 and make their pick in this draft? Just the sense you get. I know it's still a month out.
I would say stay put. Right now, I'm going to say just stay put and take a quarterback there, and then move on with your life. That's basically the way that I'm going to see it.
So you would definitely get that quarterback at 2 just because it's that important?
I think so, yes. Even if the guy that you like isn't supposedly worth a number 2 pick, I'm still taking him at number 2, because much better to reach for him a little bit than to let somebody else grab him if you have your heart set on someone. Now, if it's Shador, this is all a moot point, because they will just take him at number 2 and move forward. But if it's somebody else, I wouldn't get too cute and think that maybe you could get him at 26.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, great stuff. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Mary Kay.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you check her out. Browns beat reporter from Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Always the best information on the Browns in town. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report straight ahead. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, love the show. I saw a couple of trade predictions with the Giants. Why in the world would the Browns give up 4 picks to just receive the 3rd pick and the 34th pick? Who's initiating this draft trade, the Giants or the Browns? I mean, if they want to move up, I'm not giving them anything. I'll give them a 7th rounder, but you want to move up, it's going to cost you. So I'm just curious, is that the Browns initiating that trade? Because it doesn't make sense to me. Go Browns. Go.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. So, Fred, the Giants would get pick 2, 94, 192, and 216. Browns would get 3 and 34. So the idea was if you're trading back and you're not taking a quarterback, you get that second pick in the second round. So you'd have 33, 34. You'd be able to take, in theory, a quarterback and a playmaker because you need playmakers.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't, this whole thing, it's hard to put a deal on trading down. And the thing that I keep coming back to, I know it comes down to what your team, what your evaluators think of the quarterbacks, but why do the Giants want to move Earth to get Shador Sanders supposedly at 3 and not being afraid they're going to get him, and yet the Browns don't think he's worth being a quarterback? That's what I'm not understanding. I know it's in the eyes of the beholder, but I think if you stay where you're at, unless you move up to get one, you just do what you're going to do. If you don't believe in Sanders, then you take Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. I don't know. I don't know what it seems like whenever you take it out of your control, then you're still left without a quarterback. That's why it's been so perplexing all along that they haven't solved the issue. And I realize a lot of it could be out of their hands, but by getting Kirk Cousins, even giving up something now or Russ Wilson to get that done, then you go into the draft and then maybe you don't have to take a quarterback if you don't really love any of them. But to trade down, unless you really want Carter and you're sure that the Giants are going to take Sanders, then you get something out of it. But I don't see why you would be giving up anything. Just like if the Titans asked for something to move up to 1 to get Ward, why would they give you anything? It'd just be on you to add to sweeten the pot.
So I know you wrote an article. Browns' moves are practical but uninspiring with quarterback unsettled. Take us through that article.
Well, it's just kind of the way when you look at it, the moves are, logical or just filling some holes, no splash. The splash, as we see now, is re-signing Myles Garrett, and that's great. I'm not downplaying it, but you were 3-14 with Garrett last year. Basically, you're just treading water by re-signing Garrett. Obviously, it'd be a big hole if you just let him go. But the idea was if you did, you would get a haul and a trade. So with that being said, that's your big move. Now, what are you going to do to improve the team? Now, granted, they're a long way from having to play a game, but I feel like, okay, you might have improved a little bit in the pass rushing with Malik Collins, might be the most notable pickup on defense, and Joe Tryon-Shanka, maybe a competition untapped potential at edge rusher, re-signed Devin Bush, Tony Brown on defense, and Jerome Baker. That tends to point to me more of the status of JOK. And then on offense, which we felt all along, you're dead last in the NFL at 15 points a game, is getting some weapons, some playmakers. You made 3 moves to date. Basically, Kenny Pickett, who I would consider being in competition to be the backup or the third team quarterback. Maybe, they'll tell him he can compete. Right now, he's the only guy you got. And 2 offensive linemen for people that like the idea of getting new linemen. That's where they put the most emphasis. The Tevin Jenkins is kind of interesting because NFL.com had him ranked as like the 4th best guard in free agency. We haven't seen, or I haven't seen the contract, which would tell you what they think of him because he's primarily been a starter. And are you bringing him in to start and then going to trade Wyatt Teller or somebody like that. And Cornelius Lucas, again, solid pick, a swing tackle that has been a starter in his career. So what I'm saying is they're practical moves, but nothing that's going to like, wow, that makes a big difference. And so far in free agency, they didn't do that. I don't know if they really can do that. They're sitting here now down their top 3 safeties from last year. Not all of them. 3 of their top 5, and Rodney McLeod and Juan Thornhill. And right now, you don't really even have a starter opposite Grant Delpit other than Ronnie Hickman, unless you're just going to hand him the job. So I expect them to make a move, but you can't address all these moves in the draft. You have 10 picks, but you right now, are still down a couple starters, and you would hope you'd use your first 2 picks, maybe 3 picks to get starters in the lineup, but it's uninspiring to me.
Yeah, I can't argue with that at all. What about Nick Chubb? What are your thoughts about Nick Chubb relative to the Browns?
Well, I'm one of the few that wrote that I fully expect him back. I mean, at our site, one of the writers wrote about, something NFL, older guys in the NFL have been let go because of their salary cap numbers. And it's my understanding that the NFL Players Association put together something where you can keep older players and get a little relief on the salary cap. It's my understanding that if you give them a qualifying offer, which in Chubb's case was about $3 million, that it would only count as $1.5 million against the salary cap. That's about what he made last year. And so I don't think he's received any offers, to my knowledge, that bowls him away to make him go somewhere else. It only makes sense. He said he wanted to finish his career with the Browns. I don't see there being a big market for him. He needs 400 yards to pass Leroy Kelly. Not that that's a big thing maybe with the Browns, but I would think they would want him to finish between Jim Brown, Leroy Kelly, 2 Hall of Famers. And I don't think you want him to go somewhere like the Steelers or some other team and have a Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry resurgence, because many times in the second year back from a big devastating knee surgery, a player's closer to their former self. And I think that he would be on track. So to me, you bring him back as your third back with Jerome Ford, and I would draft 1, maybe even 2 of these top running backs in the draft, maybe 1 higher and 1 at the end. There's 10, 12 top flight running backs. You have a guy for the future or 2. You have Jerome Ford, but if Nick Chubb is anywhere near the Nick Chubb we all know, 5.3 yards a carry, you got a tremendous room for this year and the future. So I really think he'll be back. Just knowing him, unless the Browns absolutely don't want him, but I don't understand why they wouldn't under that qualifying offer. What would only count like $1.5 million towards the cap, as I understand. It just seems to make the most sense to me. I think in talking to him, he said he's not comfortable going somewhere else. He's comfortable here. That's one of the reasons he said he wanted to finish here. And I believe him.
So Chris Sims, former NFL quarterback, talking about Travis Hunter potentially being the guy at number 2 for the Browns.
He is the number 1 receiver in the draft. He is special. He is definitely a more special wide receiver than he is DB. Like, as just alone, I would just say, and again, I haven't gone full in on the corner stuff yet, but I've seen enough of him to go, he's a top 5 wide receiver pick. He's that kind of guy. He's special. I think if he just played corner, I don't think we would be going, he's a top 5 pick at corner. That would just be my 2 cents if I had to make a banner statement. But his receiver play is really, really special, and he's a phenomenal football player. He has incredible feel. It's like he grew up playing backyard football all the time. He just knows how to do everything, defense, offense, all of that, let alone I think he can be an all-pro receiver that leads the NFL in receptions. He's got that type of talent. So, yeah, I could see that at 2, Mike, for sure.
And, Fred, again, depends on what you think of the quarterbacks up there. They need a wide receiver that can threaten a defense with the ball in his hand. Jerry Jeudy's good. Give me a couple more playmakers.
Yeah, I've said that all along, and that's kind of my uninspiring. Some of the most important aspects of this offseason was get another receiver at the top of the rotation, solve the running back position. I think they'll do that in the draft. Obviously, the quarterback overall, but at wide receiver, that's the interesting thing about Hunter, that he plays 2 premium positions. Andrew Berry has drafted a wide receiver every year since he's been here, and he's drafted cornerbacks the last 4 out of the 5 years. But at wide receiver, he's never went higher in the 3rd round. He loves wide receivers and cornerbacks, their premium positions. So it seemed like you could solve both, with one swoop. Barry said that wide receivers, what they look at him as, that's just it. You only get 1 pick. What do you put most, where does that solve more problems? Quarterback, wide receiver, cornerback, or like a defensive end, like with Abdul Carter and overall value. So that's why I keep saying if you don't go quarterback, then you take Carter or Hunter. It's just really how you view them. If Hunter was just a wide receiver and he did nothing else, would he be, ranked as the 2nd best player in the draft? Or if he was just a cornerback, would he be I think it's that multiplicity is why he is overall. But does that translate to the NFL level? Very few can be full-time wide receiver cornerbacks. And I think you do have to pick one side. Where can he make the biggest impact? And that's the decision they have to make, And so I can buy that case. I still think you got to solve the problem of who's going to get him the ball. And that's where I'll just say one more thing. I've heard a little bit of a rumor, probably, will come to fruition or it'll go away by April 1st, because my understanding, like with Brandon Ayuk, he has a roster bonus type situation. And there's been some talk, I believe. They linked the Browns to him last year. I think they've talked some. I don't know if that would come to fruition, but that would kind of, give a little indication, in my opinion, where they go if they pull off a trade. We know Andrew Berry likes to trade for wide receivers. He's done so the last 3 years. Whether he's able to pull that off before the draft with Ayuk or somebody else, I don't know. But that would tell you where they're going.
Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report in Ogden. Step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break. An idea that is a little out of the box for a veteran quarterback. Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report here on Sports4CLE. Former Raiders GM Mike Mayock on Derek Carr, a guy who used to be his team's quarterback. This from the Rich Eisen Show.
With Derek Carr, keep in mind, New Orleans restructured his contract recently. So a team that would trade for Derek would only have to pay $1.2 million, the veteran minimum this year. And next year, he makes $40 million, but it's non-guaranteed. So if you were to trade for Derek, you get the opportunity to start a guy this year and be your bridge. If you needed him next year, he could be your bridge for a total of 41 million, 20 million a year for, and if you don't want him year two, you cut him with no consequences. So I kind of look at Derek Carr and I go, okay, if New Orleans was willing to move him, point number one, okay, and if Derek was willing to go to a team like, say, Cleveland, that's a year removed from being an 11-win team with a quarterback-friendly coach who won 11 games with 5 quarterbacks in 1 year. So maybe if I'm the Cleveland Browns, I'm talking to Mickey Loomis and saying, Mick, would you move him? What would it take? Because it's a $1.2 million contract with Deshaun Watson making all that money. To me, it's a phone call that has to be made. And if you get shut out, at the end of the day, if you're Cleveland and you get shut out, and again, Kevin and Andrew are under some pressure, Derek Carr can step in day one and compete.
And Fred, I know we'll look at your quarterback projection 7.0. Derek Carr was on there. It's kind of interesting that you kind of connect the dots with a guy that's a former GM.
Well, yeah, I believe it was my 2.0 because that's what I really thought made the most sense, going after a Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, especially with a new coach in New Orleans, and there was talk that they weren't really committing to him. Obviously, Mayock would know more about the salary implications than I do. It was under my understanding when he restructured that it would cost, an exorbitant amount for the Saints to move on from him in dead cap, and that's why they couldn't now. But if that is truly the case, it'd be kind of like a Kirk Cousins situation, is that why would they want to trade him if they have to pay the freight, the majority of the freight? That's why it would be very attractive to the Browns. But if that is the case and you could do that, that would be my number one move because he's only 33 years old, I believe. He's always played well against the Browns. I think he's a very good quarterback. My reasoning in looking at the rankings, he didn't play enough games because he got hurt and missed the last 5 or 6 games, but he would have been the 10th ranked quarterback in the NFL in his statistics and so forth. So I think that would be a tremendous move, and Andrew Berry would know as well as anyone. It would just be a matter, would the Saints be willing to do that when they don't really have a quarterback, unless they draft, somebody come up and get one of the top ones, or Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe or somebody they feel, they're ready to go with, or even Shedeur Sanders. So it is my understanding that Carr has a no trade clause, and so he would have to okay it. But if you showed him, the opportunity with the Browns, maybe he would okay that. It's just, I think the reason Rodgers is being linked to the Steelers so much is because these quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, they don't want to go somewhere and then the team use the second overall pick or the first overall pick or third overall and draft a quarterback, and then they get benched right away, kind of like Kirk Cousins did last year with Michael Penix. And that's why now Cousins saying he's going to wait till after the draft before he waives his no trade. I would think Carr might do the same thing or whatever, but that's why I think a lot of this is kind of sitting still, because some of these quarterbacks are not in any hurry, and I can see Rodgers the same thing. I don't want to go somewhere if they got their quarterback with the second or third pick or first overall, because they're going to go to them right away.
So this is your 7.0 article on quarterback projections. You have the veteran being Carson Wentz, and the rookie continues to be Shedeur Sanders. Is that an availability kind of thing with Wentz, or what draws you to Wentz?
Nothing draws me to those guys. I mean, if you saw, I started a new thing, what I would do. And I said, still pursue the Kirk Cousins and take Cam Ward until that door's closed. Otherwise, we'll have another option. But with that, it's kind of musical chairs. It looked like Wilson and Rodgers were going to go to the Steelers and the Giants, in the musical chairs, and he was the next best option. It really, if those two go there, I would say it's Wentz or Flacco. I'm writing Wentz for the connection that there was some interest in him mutually. I don't know if that will happen or not, but in the musical chairs game, I'm not too sure that the Browns were going to get a Wilson, or definitely not Rodgers, I don't think. But Wilson could creep back into the picture now that it sounds like that the Steelers maybe are only looking at him as a fallback, and I don't know how open he is. And the Giants signed Winston, so those are some moves that might have changed some of the equation since. But no, I really don't like Wentz that much for the Browns. But I feel the projection is what I think the Browns are going to do. At that point, when I wrote that last week, that would change on my next one. But yeah, I don't really love that thing. And that's why I did kind of what I would do underneath it. But that's the projection right now.
All right, before I let you go, let me throw this to you. What would you do? Would you swap picks with the Saints? I think they have 9 or 11. So you give them 2, they give you 11 and Derek Carr. Would you do that if you were the Browns?
Wow.
It's a pretty good one, huh?
Yeah, I hate to get out of the top 5 because you want one of those, but you got to solve the quarterback situation. I think that at least solves it for a couple years. And kind of allows you to get back in the picture. I think competent quarterback play, and that's what you would get, that you could win, in 2025. I think the biggest thing is about any other position. We've just seen it, even the great ones. It takes them a little time. Wide receivers, even Marvin Harrison, he didn't make the biggest impact. Would Hunter make that big impact as a rookie? Would Abdul Carter make a big impact? I think Carter would. But yeah, that's a very interesting suggestion there. I would try to keep the 2, but maybe I don't know what you would have to do to get Carr. Probably pretty much. But then it comes down to salary. If you'd be willing to take on some salary or take it on, you might be able to get him for a lot less than that second pick. You could maybe swap your 33rd pick, and next year or something like that.
Fred Greetham, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Fred.
Thank you, Dave. Have a great day.
Fred Greetham, make sure you check him out. Senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report, always insightful Browns coverage. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.